Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Talon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services.
But I want them to celebrate all working class female people as a whole. We're not somebody to look down upon. We're not somebody to judge. We are amazing people who should be celebrated. Some of us can offer so much stuff to the world.
Today I'm joined by multidisciplinary artist Sara Prinsloo. Sara is currently based in Sheffield, originally from Manchester, and we're talking about these working class roots as a continuation of recent chats on the show. We're getting into a trashy Barbie project about reflecting personality, roots and upbringing in our creative work. What about the variation in her practice? She works full time and does a lot of her projects around it. How does that feel? How does she make it work? This is the Creative Condition. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Ben Talon. I am your host. As ever, this is the Creative Condition podcast. How are you doing, guys? Full of adrenaline. I'm just off the back of my first Creative Condition talk. It's a bumper. It's pretty big, and I've just done it for D&AD, for their Academy of New Graduates. It's New Blood Academy. It was brilliant. I really loved it. I probably overwhelmed the students massively because it was getting on for an hour and a half worth of talk, which we split into two halves, but it is a bumper. It's looking at the anatomy of creativity. And it's a workshop, so I'm doing a one-dayer. I'm launching my one-day workshop, and I've just done it for those guys. And the good thing is, it's a kind of talk, there's a lot of neuroscience in there, a lot of psychology, a lot of observed experiences about creativity and happiness and belonging and communities and all the stuff that underpin and make up creativity and determine whether it is working efficiently or not, and developing it and personal growth and all that. So I sort of highlighted to the students that, don't worry about sitting and taking notes and remembering all this stuff, but if anything does leap out, then, they get my brand new Anatomy of Creativity map, and that means they're able to go and study. They can look up the definition of all the things I'm talking about, and then it's up to them. They can go and delve further into that and do some work on themselves. I provided a lot of exercises, so it's something I want to take to market. So if you're an agency leader or you're a business and you want to book it, it's ready now. Get in touch and we'll have a chat. I've got the document. I'll send you the PDF with all the info. But it was great, and it's another notch on a growing resume of work around creativity. And it's all self-taught, so it does feel quite good because this is my way of promoting a bit more stability in my practice, because I'm still an illustrator, but this is what I'm doing in my downtime, and I want to do it more and more. I want to help people understand and embrace their creativity, and to get to sit and talk to new design graduates, about things I've learned over 10 years and share bits of science and all that. It feels really great. I'm becoming quite the nerd in that respect. So looking forward to the feedback on that one. I hope it's helped the students. If you're listening to this and you were one of the students, cheers for taking the time to listen. You're a lovely audience. And I even noticed a couple of little laughs at my jokes, which is not so common. I often get the David Brent response where it's like the person in the front row just sort of staring through me and like, ooh. But it was great. Before we carry on, big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, Illustration X. You can check out their global range of illustration and animation portfolios now at illustrationx.com. Some of the world's greatest artists on there, animators, mural artists, set designers, it's all going on. Check them out, and their Trend X report, which is frontline reporting from their agents about current trends and about observations and things they've noticed in the industry. Also, a big shout out to the Ukrainian Institute, who you can continue to help in this troubling time of war by supporting their creative community, who are brilliant and who are brave. You can connect them worldwide. You can share their work on social media. You could even commission them. You could take them on and mentor them. There's loads of ways you can help them. But let's not forget about these guys, because, you know, the longer these global troubles wear on, the more invisible it seems to become. And I don't want that to be the case, because I've got friends there. I interviewed Olya Protasova not too long ago on the show. I think it was episode 212. I might be wrong, but Google creative condition Olya Protasova. Awesome. So much insight into creativity in times of war and about resilience and about the history of Ukraine. And it really, you know, sad stuff, but inspiring in the way those guys continue to make and create and be strong and be resilient. So coming up today, Sara Prinsloo. I met Sara at the exhibition for my collaboration with Andrew Cotterill, Lend Me a Ear, in Covent Garden back in 2019. So Sara has been on my radar for 5 years now. And Sara had suffered a personal trauma that I'm not going to go into on this show. I don't really think it needs to be detailed. But it was horrible. And, you know, we had a very deep conversation very quickly, given that I was in the throes of an exhibition that mattered to me about self-expression, about identity. And Sara had this happen, so we got chatting about all sorts, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And I've bought Sara's wares and Sara's bought mine, and we've supported one another, and we've always flirted with the idea of doing a podcast. And we both share a working class background, so it seemed like a timely episode to finally get my act together and do, off the back of Professor Carl Chin, who's a historian specialising in the English urban working classes, and Birmingham, of course, where he's from and celebrated, rightly so. And also the Power of Naughty and Dirty Energy chapter readings from the Creative Condition book, which is out now at bentalanwriter.com/shop. Sara seemed like a natural follow-up for that. So we are getting back into the working class thing, but we're also just talking about the broader themes of learning how to channel your personality and express yourself in your work in a way that resonates and uses your unique life story to the max. And that's a big theme that I was talking to the D&AD students about, which was channeling all of you, the good, the bad and the ugly, and learning to look at all those flaws with duality and recognise that they're not always going to be flaws, you know what I mean? And really helps to make good of everything, even the bad. So Sara and I are going to be getting into those themes today. I loved this conversation. It was great to finally do it. If you get a chance, please do go and rate, review or subscribe to the show on the platforms you listen on. It's really, really helpful, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Best way you can support the show. Like I said, the book is out now. Go and grab your signed paperbacks at bentalanwriter.com/shop or ebooks on Kindle store. Going to be running some promotions for those before long, and one day I will get around to the audio book. That's about it. Enjoy this conversation with the wonderful Sara Prinsloo. Let's touch on background. I'm interested in childhood. I know we have working class roots, and you're a Manc, aren't you?
Yeah, well, it's like, it's hard because it's a little village outside of Manchester. So it's kind of like, can't really quite call yourself a Manc, but, you know, when you're trying to explain it to people, that's kind of where I locate it to. Just the outskirts of Manchester. It's a little village called Hadfield. Mm-hmm. It's like a little milling town, and to be honest, there wasn't quite a lot going on there. Not many opportunities, creative world-wise. I wouldn't say it offers a whole lot. It has improved now. I mean, I was born in 1985 and I was born there, so at that time, I wouldn't really say it offered too much. But yeah, it was like kind of a nice little place to grow up. As a kid on a little council estate, everybody knew each other, so you know, you could just play out until it was dark at night, and there was no kind of worry. You'd hear your mum screaming from top of the hill like, dinner's ready, or whatever, and then, you know, you just go over to your mates' houses. Everyone stayed at each other's houses. It was a really nice environment. You know, you never locked your door, really. We did get robbed twice, but you didn't really lock your door. I think my mum used to put the key under the doormat for some reason when my dad used to go to the pub. He used to stumble back and open a door, but yeah. But yeah, fantastic neighbours, fantastic place to grow up as a child. But I think going into teenage years, it was a bit naff, you know, because you want to, when you're a teenager, you kind of want to, I don't know, develop your own kind of self, don't you? You're kind of developing into an adult and you want to explore more. And I think in a village like that, it only offers so much. So, you know, in teenage years, we were just always in Manchester all the time, going seeing bands. Bands was our thing. That's all we ever used to do. Every Thursday, we'd head into Manchester. We knew some tout guy. He used to sell us tickets. And sometimes we wouldn't even know who we're seeing. We'll just go down there, have some drinks and see who's there. Like, get a ticket for them. You're talking like there was £7 a ticket. You know, it wasn't, it's Manchester Academy. Is it 2 and 3 that are within a university? And we just used to go and watch people there and just have a laugh. And yeah, music was a massive part of my life growing up, huge. So yeah, just the going watching bands. But my dad was also in a band. He nearly made it, but didn't quite, and had kids and had to support them, so he had to give that up. But yeah, music wise in the household was a huge thing as well. Growing up with music like Nirvana and the Smiths and all that sort of thing, and the Beatles. But then my dad used to listen to classical music a lot. You know, the record player was always going, and the cassette players were always going. But yeah, music was a huge part of our lives. It still is to this day. My mum, my dad, I think we attach to it on such a like an emotional level. We really engage with music quite deeply, and we share that together as well. It's something I want my kids to grow up like. I want them to really home in on just what music can offer.
Well, it's kind of it's intergenerational, isn't it? Obviously, regardless of tastes, but it's a real bond. It's a real glue in communities, you hope, and in, well, certainly historically, and in actually that, yeah, it's the same with us and our kids. You know, I'll be into whatever they're into, their kids show stuff, and it's like you sort of, it's a common language, which is lovely, and it's really primal as well.
Oh, it is, yeah. With my youngest son, I'm trying to get him to concerts now. I'm like, come to a gig with me. And we just bought Sleaford Mods. I'm not sure whether that might be a bit rowdy for a 12-year-old. I was like, let's just book it. We'll figure it out later and see.
I don't know. At 12 years old, I reckon I would have been all over that. And I think 12-year-olds are probably a bit more grown up now than I was.
I hope that he finds that love that we've got for music. Definitely. Just books like the Fontaines DC. Can't wait to see them.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
The Libertines. That's kind of nostalgic for me. That's kind of going back to a really important part of my life where I was at art college, and you know, the Libertines just broke through, and it was just something me and my best friends all shared together. We absolutely loved everything that they were about as well, literacy wise and all that aspect of things. Yeah, hats off to them. So yeah, going to see them this year will be quite exciting, I think. Yeah,
I've been reading about this recently, the music thing. It's in terms of memory and emotion. I've been reading a brilliant book called Your Brain on Art by Ivy Ross and Susan Magsamen, and it goes into like the neuroscience of how we interpret art and taking culture. And it talks about how the part of the brain that, I forget the terms, I've got them written down. I will remember them at some point, but it's you know, it's all interconnected. Like the part that deals with memory and with emotion is interlinked with scent and with sound in particular, which is why when we have certain smells and why when we hear certain sounds, it conjures memories in a really strong kind of emotional way. I found that really interesting.
It's bonkers, isn't it? I was talking about this to a friend the other day. I had a bit of PTSD at one point when my sister passed away. And it was the most bizarrest thing I've ever experienced. It was a short while after, I'll probably say a month or two. And I just woke up and I could smell everything that was happening at that time. So we was in a hospital. I could smell. Oh, it's quite grim, but I could smell my sister's hair. I could smell the antiseptic stuff in the hospital. It was so strong as well. It wasn't just a little whiff. It was like a full on, I am there. I am experiencing that thing again. But how a smell can just, I mean, because the smell's not there. It's just something in your brain wiring it to put you back in that place again. It was just, I can't get my head around it. It only happened once and it freaked me out. I was just thinking, what on earth is going on? And it lasted probably a good like 15 minutes. It was,
Wow, really?
really weird. Yeah.
That's
But
a
it just
powerful
goes to show how
experience.
powerful the brain is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and the interconnections going on there. I do find it for somebody who got a double F in science, I do find it very interesting.
Double F, not even one, you got two.
I know. Well, so there's something that came up on the chat where with Gary that I found really interesting was the pub thing. I know you mentioned like Sean Ryder trying to fly kick a barmaid.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, that was just absolutely bonkers, yeah.
But
What were we
something so
talking about now? I can't remember.
you were talking about the kind of the that it was chaotic, but that there was a certain creativity in there where like people playing fiddles and there was a musical aspect to it. And what I wanted to pick up on, because I remember this growing up, my parents weren't drinkers and they rarely went to the pub, but the friends that I was friends with from school, their parents did, and they'd stay in there all Sunday, and they weren't like having a session, they weren't on it, but they'd just be steadily in there playing pool, playing darts, so old school
Yeah.
pub kind of community, and it'd be busy and bustling. So we'd play out on the mill, which was next to the pub where we grew up, and we'd go into the pub. And the people in there, there were just so many characters and rich storytelling, and I loved it. And they'd all rub your head and give you a bag of crisps and sort of look out for you. And I think it's something that sadly we need more of that back. Because I remember having a chat on the dog walk the day after the election, and while we were sort of happy that Labour got in, there was this, we were a bit concerned about the reform thing, and I said, look, but how you start to deal with that, in my opinion, is you need more community. We need to get back to having community halls and shared spaces where people can come together and talk in person instead of this horrible thing where it's all very othered and online, and it's kind of you're played by media and all that. And I think them old school pubs were a bit of a hotbed for bringing extreme characters together and showing you that actually, while someone did need a bit of management here and there, they weren't bad people, and there was overlaps. And I loved that as a kid, and I think it's something I'd love to see now. But it also has an impact on my creativity. So I guess what I wanted to ask you is, because I loved that aspect in your work, the kind of like the trashy stuff you're doing at the minute, and the trainers and the sculptures and things like that. So what part did that kind of, not just the pub scene, I guess, but the community within a working class environment have on your own storytelling and your own work?
I guess my artwork is trying to celebrate it. It's trying to celebrate the working class. I feel like for years, like, I don't know if I've tried to quash it or like, I think it's the art world that does it more so from my own personal experiences, like talking about my artwork. Am I articulate enough? Like, I didn't have a great education, and I guess I found myself trying to be someone I wasn't, but now I've kind of spun everything back and I'm actually celebrating who I am, my background, how we grew up, because I think it's really important to document that somehow and give it to the world so people understand what was going on in certain areas of the country, in the world, to certain people of that generation as well. I mean, I grew up in the 90s and noughties, so everything in my artwork is like my experience of that. But I think we've kind of got a bit of a responsibility to be proud of who we are. And that's where the whole trashiness comes from. It's like, so basically I did a trashy Barbie box at Hillsborough Festival recently. So it was only last week. And the whole idea was you went into my trashy Barbie box, which was a life-size box, and you could unleash all your trashiness without any judgment. And I guess that's what it all boils down to. Ian Brown had, is it in his song Fear, Fear, where he goes on about a social chameleon and changing the way you are because of the people around you and whatnot. And I think it's really important in the art world to still hold on to our working class attitudes. And talking to Gary Mansfield about what working class is, he said it brilliantly. He says it is an attitude, because I was saying to him, am I still working class? Because, I've got a house now and my dad isn't working in a factory anymore and my mum and dad are actually better off financially. Who am I? Does that still mean I am working class? And he was like, of course you are, you idiot. He's like, because they're your own experiences and it's an attitude. And that's what I want to bring through in my work that has been influenced by things like the community in the pub, all those really fun experiences and all this. And the storytelling is a massive thing in the pub as well. And just hearing other people's stories. And, I was studying art when I used to work in the pub. And I just used to draw everybody, and everyone knew I was the student artist at the time. And everyone used to encourage me, buy little drawings off me and go, oh, Sarah, draw this, and I'll sit there drawing it. Shaw Ryder swapped 7 of my paintings for 7 Kasabian tickets one night when he was absolutely wasted. And he probably doesn't even remember whatsoever. But yeah, I think it all brings together this, what I'm trying to say through my work, through all these different experiences.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with that. Yeah, I had a similar conversation. I haven't released it yet with a professor called Carl Chin. He specialises in the English working class. He's a Brummie. I think Carl's in his 70s now. I came across him on the Blind Boy podcast and thought it was wonderful. And he was very protective of that idea that just because you've had a bit of success in your life and you've managed to climb a little bit, and can get an all right job and get a bit of stability, doesn't in no way remove you from that culture, because that's who you are and what you, like you say, your belief systems, your attitude, it's how you conduct yourself and what, where you come from.
Yeah.
So, he got quite sort of affronted by the idea that people would suggest that because he'd done well for himself, his dad was a bookie and everything else, and he was the first sort of person to go to uni and go on and do a career that required that bit more education. And I completely agree. It's like I take great pride in how I've been raised by my mum, and it was always a bit rough and ready, and so were my mates, and that's great. And it's just such rich visual stimulus for me, and also in my writing and the storytelling, like the your mum stuff, and getting to explore just that world. And I think to a degree that's what we're here to do. We're all creative as humans, and if you can't reflect your lived experience purely, then it's a shame.
A working class life offers so much in terms of creativity, just in terms of context. There's so much to explore. Like you say, in the pubs, solely in the pubs, there's I've got a book called Know Your Place that's full of essays written by a bunch of working class people. It's really interesting. You should check it out. They've got one all about a pub and the pubs and the culture of pubs and how they're dying out and how they used to be like the pinnacle of communities, and now they're all closing down.
Yeah, it is. It's a real loss, and obviously social media has played a part in that, because it gives you this kind of vacuous version of what that used to be the only version for people in terms of coming together with their mates, but it never delivers because it's just designed to keep you there, and it never quite fulfills that same feeling. I'm as guilty as the next person who can spend a lot of time on my own working and not go and socialise because I'm knackered in the evenings, I've got kids and everything else. But when I push myself and I do go out for a beer with my mates, always very thankful that I did. You can't beat just that being in the same room and together and sharing what's been going on.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely. I totally feel you about the feeling knackered in the evening and not wanting to go out. I'm like, don't even invite me out past 7 p.m. So I'm not going to go after work and whatnot. And this is a whole thing as well, trying to be an artist working class, you've also got to have a full-time job at the same time. Like, I mean, that's the position that I'm in now. Like and then it's hard to get your name out there because you're tired and you don't want to go to the exhibitions because you've only just got in from work, and then you've got to cook the kids' tea, and then, you got to get their uniforms ready for the next day. And I think it adds that little extra pressure. I mean, it's hard to, does it or does it not? Or is that just an excuse? I feel like it's just harder, isn't it? It's just that little bit harder to make ends meet, to get your work out there, because of the lack of opportunities as a younger person, especially in Hadfield. There's nothing.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Similar in Keighley, really, where I grew up. But and what was really interesting to me, you mentioned working class women in particular, that struck a chord, because when I actually reflected on that, I thought about it, it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because you guys are one, maybe two, but probably one generation removed from a generation of our mothers and grandmothers that really didn't get that opportunity. You might have got an isolated example, but people in that, women in particular in that generation, were probably not going to uni or getting to go to art college and things like that. And I in my latest book, my foreword was written by Jane Bowyer, who did a brilliant project called Women in Print, and she'd grown up in a similar time to us guys, actually, but she was kind of dismayed by the lack of female role models, celebrated, not in the same way that David Beckham and the Gallaghers and all that were, particularly coming from Northwest. Yeah. And so she curated this exhibition of people celebrating their female hero through their skills, which was really good. But I wanted her to write the foreword because she told me this amazing story about her friend's nan who had a 90th birthday celebration. And when everyone was kind of celebrating her as a mum and a wife and everything else, family related, she grabbed the microphone like impromptu and said, but I also would like to say a few words about my creativity, because I think I would have gone insane a long time ago were it not for the subtle ways I was able to practice creativity, albeit within the household and just for me. And I found that beautiful. So I asked Jane if she could kind of talk to Marie about her story and about that generation growing up and right around that, because it felt really powerful to me. So
yeah.
And you're another person who's, I find very, very interesting as an artist. As well. And I never thought of it as a sort of minority woman until you said it to Gary, and I thought, you're right, I can't think of too many working class female artists.
We need more, definitely.
We do.
We've got some good things to express, I'm trying to think of working class women so inspirational. Oh my God, I forgot her name. The one with the fried eggs.
What's
her name?
It's not Sarah Lucas, is it?
Yeah. I love her work. But yeah, and it only kind of struck me when I was thinking about people who influenced my work, and the majority of them were all male. And it's kind of like, oh, it'd be really nice to have some more female influences, and hopefully in generations to come that'll be something that can grow over time. But yeah, it's only something I've figured out through having conversations as well, because you don't really think about it too often until you start speaking to people, and especially on podcasts and stuff, you have a little chinwag and then you realize these things are cropping up. And all my paintings are females, and they are, so but my trashy ladies, are all females, but they're all supposed to, they're like versions of myself, so it's a way I can express myself, and they all have kind of like little subtle hints of me as a person, but I want them to celebrate all working class female people as a whole. We're not somebody to look down upon. We're not somebody to judge. We are amazing people who should be celebrated. And some of us can offer so much stuff to the world. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So if we can all rally together, I think working together is a really important aspect of it. And that is something I would really like to do, is work with, maybe collaborate with more female working class artists.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah, because there is strength in numbers, and there's something about collectives and group shows and things that captures a moment as well, and more of a collective psychology, which I think is really important.
Mm,
But it's a very complex problem. You know, I talked when I talked to Cal Chin, it was very hard to get anywhere near any solutions because it's kind of systemic and it's historic as well. And you
mm,
know, it's very hard now for particularly since the EBAC and the kind of diminishing of the arts in education. If you've not got the guidance coming from the home, like I imagine that your boys would be in the situation the same as my kids, where they're going to be all right because we value artistic expression massively and we're going to make sure that they've got ample opportunities to find their voice. But for
mm.
kids who don't have that in the home, and which is a lot of people, probably the vast majority who haven't ever experienced artistic expression or done it themselves, they're not going to find it in school. Youth budgets are being slashed, which also then impacts the industry. So it's a very complex problem.
Especially school cuts. I know my kids' school in particular, we got placed there. We never, so we moved to Sheffield, sorry. So we lived in Hemel Hempstead for 10 years and we moved up north to Sheffield. And the schools are all full, so we got placed in a school. It wasn't the ones that we chose. So we chose 3 schools and we didn't get any of them. So they got placed in this school, and the art department absolutely infuriates me. At parents' evening, I just get so riled up about it. But I know they're settled in there, and I don't want to move them. They've made their friends. So I find it my responsibility to make sure that they're still doing their creative subjects, but in a different way, whether that's coming around an art gallery with me, whether that's drawing. I like to set them daft tasks of things to draw. For instance, my son will always, Vincent will always run in my room and he'll go, what shall I draw now? And I'll be like, I don't know, a unicorn in a rubber ring in a swimming pool or something. And then he'll go away and he'll draw that and come back, and I'll be like, right, what's next? So I think I have to take on a bit of responsibility now because, and luckily enough, I could do that, but the school they're in now can't offer anything. And the teacher said to me at parents' evening, "Oh, you used to teach, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe I'll get back into it again at some point." And she went, don't do it. Don't do it. And she was so negative about her teaching role. I just thought, how the hell are you going to inspire kids? How are you going to do it? Because she was um her attitudes to me was like she really didn't like doing what she was doing, and she wanted to move on but couldn't financially. That's the through what she was saying. That's the impression I got, and I thought it was really sad. I asked her if she did any 3D work, clay or whatnot, just any 3-dimensional work, and she said no because it was too messy, and the art class has carpets and the carpets can't get messy. And I just thought, oh my God, it is mad. It's so sad.
It's so antithetical to it, this is going on in unis as well. You know, I do particularly since the book came out. I've been promoting it this summer by going and doing talks in universities all over the show, and a number of them, they've had to fight their corner to be allowed to put artwork on the walls. Can you believe that in a creative
Wow.
course in a uni? And I don't know whether it's a friend raised the point. He said, I wonder if it's like a kind of they're a bit scared about what the work might, what might be in it. Are they going to upset someone? I don't know whether it's that health and safety. I don't know whether they just can't be bothered because it's become a business model. I don't know what the reasons are, but that was insane to me. And there was a brilliant scene in I watched the To the End, the Blur film that came out the other week, and there's a brilliant scene where Damon and Graham go back to their old Colchester secondary school, and the head teacher's showing them around, and he says, "Oh, we've got this room," because he was saying how they used to make music in the cabins at lunchtime, and those cabins don't exist anymore. And he said, "We've got our little music room is called the Albarn and Coxon room after you two." So they were loving that, but they went in and it was this sterile kind of little room, and Damon's going, could do some, I don't know what, could do with some paisley wallpaper and a big bowl of weed, and looks around at the head teacher, and he was just absolutely mortified looking at the camera, and I was like, it's so funny. But he's right in a sense. You have to have an immersive, enriched environment. Even if you've only got a tiny spare room, you have to make it yours and a living space that breathes. And I just don't see that in schools.
Otherwise.
Well, exactly. It's really important. We talked about sense and sounds earlier. I've been exploring all that stuff through the writing and research I've been doing, and it's really important. You have to consider all of it and sort of optimize what little you do have, even if you can't afford a big swish space, which I certainly can't. But it's can certainly make the most of what I've got, and I just think schools and unis are not doing that. It's a real shame.
It is a real shame. It's really sad, and I wonder what the implications will be in these generations later on in life. I wonder how the creative. I always worry about how the creative industry is going to look down the line. But maybe we can, like me, taking on the responsibility of inputting that into my kids' lives. Maybe I've got a bit of responsibility to input that into the community as well. I do a lot of community work and workshops on the skateboard scene, and we kind of teach really basic skills in the creative world. So sometimes we even do like badge making. Everyone loves badge making. They get a little circle, they can put whatever they want in it and press it into a badge. They can celebrate anything about their identity, what their interests are, what they think's funny. They've got that little blank circle to put whatever they want in. But also just teaching basic skills like drawing each other, that sort of thing. I led a class last year where I was getting kids to draw with their feet. And then, drawing without looking at your drawing, just simple things like that. Just, you don't have to hold a pencil in your hand to make a drawing. You can,
no,
but unless you're challenged to do it differently, you're probably not going to think about it.
No, it's true. And it's about more than just the act. So I had a friend got in touch to ask some advice because he's setting up a similar workshop around Wrexham, I think. No, not Wrexham, Worcester. And I was saying, look, keep it really simple for the reasons you've just explained, because it's the kids that are likely to come to it from working class backgrounds who haven't had that artistic input. They're going to be at a really basic level, but that's not the point. It's about showing them that they can express themselves, showing them a different way to frame and share their story, which is just a human basic requirement for happiness and good mental health. That's what it comes down to for me. It's not really, they're always going to get better if they carry on doing it, but more importantly, it just gives them another tool to say something.
It's all about the tools. It's all about the tools. One of our tools at our workshops that always go down well is our typewriter. It cost £5 off like eBay or something. And it was brown plastic. So I took it apart, spray painted it like bright blue, stuck loads of stickers on it, put it all back together. And it is always the biggest hit in our workshops. It's weird. It's like I think kids come over and they've never used a typewriter before. So getting them just to bash the key down rather than lightly typing. And, you can't delete, but let's celebrate those mistakes and all that type of thing. But yeah, they love the typewriter. It's brilliant.
A great tool.
Just getting them to engage on something that's, I guess, they're operating something. It's tactile. They can touch it, and then it prints something in instantly. You don't have to have an electronic printer. It's there in front of you. It's always interesting to see kids' reactions with the typewriter. And then their parents shortly follow going, oh, look, it's a typewriter. This is what it used to be like back in the day. It's funny. But yeah, just, opening up the world of creativity and the tools that it can offer for means of expression is just so basic and important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. Let's talk about your education a little bit, because I didn't know you went to St. Martin's, but I heard that on Gary's podcast. What did you study? Because I'm very interested in the sheer range in your work. I find it quite inspiring.
There's quite a lot, isn't there? I get bored easily. That's why. I studied fine art. Art BA. Yeah. It's a bit of a culture shock. Wouldn't say I got a lot out of the time I spent there, but made some really good friends. I struggled a lot. Wouldn't say I got the grades that I needed or wanted. I wasn't really proud of my results. But again, my student loan didn't even cover my rent. So then I had to work at the same time. And I worked in a club that closed at 4 a.m. And then I had to kind of go to university after. I don't think I put 100% of me into it, which is a shame, but it was probably a difficult time in my life. A lot of what I was doing at that time was escapism from things that were going on at home life struggles, just some really a big bunch of really shitty stuff. And I went to London to uni to kind of escape from all that. The same reason why I used to drink a stupid amount, do silly things, which I'm not very proud of, but it's just part of growing up and finding who I am. But yeah, I went to university, and I guess that I was hoping my irresponsible, reckless behavior would stop, but it probably only got worse. And that was because the type of people there really intimidated me. I didn't feel comfortable in who I was and my working class background whatsoever. I felt like it was something that was used for people to think negatively of me. And maybe that was just my paranoia. I don't know, but yeah, I'm trying not to make it sound really bad. But it was a shit time. I was taking too many drugs. I was drinking too much alcohol, and I was still trying to escape life in general. So it wasn't great to throw in a BA at the same time and trying to work. Yeah, it wasn't great.
I imagine there would have been ways you grew as a person, though, like sort of beneath all that, just from the independence and the sort of step away and the change in new environments.
Yeah, I mean, I was independent from quite young. I left home at 16. So I kind of always had that independence. And I always, it helped in a way that I moved away from my small little village. I think I lived in Manchester city centre at that point, actually. I think I lived in Fallowfield, but I moved away from up north to down south, and it definitely helped in that respect, just to open my mind up, other things that are going on in the country, and I met so many cool people, like my best friends, and that I still have today. So I do have a lot of love for London. I do.
Yeah.
This year, I think I struggled just to acclimatize to it. It's a massive difference. But after about a year, yeah, totally fell in love with the city. My husband's from London. That's where I met my husband. And I've got a lot of love for the city, for sure.
Yeah. And recklessness is something that's quite interesting that you mentioned there. It's something that I covered briefly in the book, talking about abandon and it's kind of unsustainable, I think, on a creative level, but in short bursts can be quite valuable. And it depends what place it's coming from the person, I use an example randomly enough of a wrestler, a guy called Shawn Michaels, who was massive in the 90s, and he had a real sort of painkiller thing going on, bad addiction. And he was out of the game for 4 years, but at his pomp, when he was in a bad place, there was just something there that was incredible. And he talked about it, and he said that when you feel like you're in a place where you got nothing to lose and a complete abandon in a creative space, you're kind of invincible. And I find that idea interesting. And for some people, it's really not the way to go. It can derail creativity, but it's a real powerful energy that I find quite interesting.
Saying effort, isn't it? Effort.
Yeah.
Whatever. You pass caring because you don't maybe have a lot of love for yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it comes from different places, different people, doesn't it? But it's long term, I think unsustainable. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to say it's got an upside. It probably hasn't, to be honest. But it's a character trait in a lot of people. But you think you mentioned it on Gary's when you said it might even be like quite a working class thing. I'd go with that. I think so. I think a lot of the working class lads I grew up with have certainly got that button.
Yeah, I've been reading these kind of papers, research papers that are saying working class people are more prone to drink excessively for reasons like escapism. And I'm really intrigued of that result that was found through this research, because I think it's something that I've experienced personally, and that's kind of what I get through my artwork as well. I've got a new series coming out of something about recklessness. It touches on a bit of humor, but hopefully that'll be coming out soon. But yeah, this working class and reckless way of abusing alcohol or drinking alcohol, where some, you get, I mean, it's not everybody, is it? But apparently the percentages are quite high. I can't remember exactly what the percentages are. And again, it could boil down to escapism, trying to escape what sort of life you've got going on at the moment, the lack of opportunities. I'm not sure. There's so many different reasons, isn't there? You could talk about it forever. I do kind of want to delve more into that link of what makes working class people, abuse alcohol far more than the rest.
Yeah, it's very much just escape. There's a very strong escapism thread there, without a doubt. I've seen it countless times. I think I would also say that the diminishing of communities, pubs and stuff, is probably plays a part. Although maybe I'm sort of contradicting myself there with the pub aspect of it. But I also think that purpose and belonging is key, and I think that, like we said about the lack of arts and education and things like that, if you're someone who sort of drops out of school quite early or is being bounced around, let's say, the criminal justice system, and don't get in with school, then you there is a bit of fuck it. It's like, if your track record says that you're something of a failure, or that you don't have a lot of purpose and belonging, you don't feel a part of something bigger, then I think it can lead to that, definitely. And then you also have to quite cynically factor in the fact that fucking marketing budgets to put drinks adverts and gambling adverts and all that in working class areas, which is a real thing, It's like
I want to look into that more. And just advertising in general in the world of alcohol. I've seen lots of vape adverts everywhere. Surely you can't, because you're not allowed to advertise cigarettes, are you?
No.
And they took all the advertisements off the cigarette branding, but I saw on the back of the bus, it was like blueberry, jazz, vapes, whatever. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, isn't that just the same as putting a pack of B&H on the end on the bus? You can't do it, can you? Surely that's got to be stopped soon.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Jeez. Yeah.
Advertising can, is quite a dark world if you dive into it.
It is, yeah.
There's definitely something I want to look into, working class alcohol advertising. See if there's any links there to tie into all the other sort of excessive drinking. Yeah. Who can we blame?
Yeah, that's it. Do you have yourself down as a naturally curious person?
Oh yeah, it's my brain. I get bored too easily. And you'll probably see that in my artwork, and I really try to not do it, but not do it in a way that my work is unrelated to the next thing. Quite often I'll make something just because I want to make it, and I've learned as well not to take a picture of everything that I do and post it on Instagram, or else I'll just confuse everybody about my art practice and what I'm actually trying to do. But yeah, naturally curious for sure. It's my attention, I think, as well. But I guess I want to experience everything myself as well. I want to have a go. I want to do that, and it's come up since I studied at university. I'm probably dyslexic as well, so I learn a lot by doing. And when I'm taught something, that it seems to me the only way that will sink into my brain is if I draw it. So when I got the technician job at the workshop at Chef Uni, my manager was kind of going through machinery with me, and I'd be like, hold on a minute. And I'd be like drawing the whole thing out, every little screw, every little thing, and I'm like just jotting it down. But that's the way my brain engages in it, to have it there visually. I'm really good at remembering directions. Like if I've walked somewhere or driven somewhere, I'll remember that quite vividly, but I can't remember names. I can't remember how to pronounce things. It's a weird one. It always gets me a bit paranoid about how I sound. yeah, there's a few things that I do get worried about, like talking to people, just having conversations, I get a bit worried about. And I'm sure it's all to do with dyslexia, but it's actually £400 to get tested for dyslexia, so I've never done it.
Is that right?
£400, yeah.
Fucking hell.
Then I'm like, well, what if I'm not?
Yeah, can have a refund, yeah.
Get it. Like,
That's
oh.
obscene though, because it's so pivotal for a
Mhm.
person's trajectory and their needs.
Yeah, yeah. It should just be something that people can access, but obviously it's not important.
That's ridiculous, especially now with the massively growing awareness of neurodivergence.
Mm,
That's
mm,
bonkers to me. Yeah, that's
mm.
absolutely crazy. It's 400 quid. I
I
mean, where's that
know.
even come from? Who's put that cost on it? It's just that's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Who's valued it is £400. I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's not good.
Dear me. Well, looking at your art practice, would it be safe to say that a lot of the pieces you do are kind of for you first and foremost? Because I see a lot of emotional creativity there, as in,
Yeah.
defining that as the things you've got to say about the world and your life, as opposed to intellectual creativity being a task you might be given at work that you might not otherwise do.
Yeah, yeah. If I don't want to do it, I probably won't do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my artwork is solely for me to express myself emotionally and trying to figure out life, who I am, what I'm supposed to be doing. I learn a lot through my art practice about myself personally. Sounds quite selfish though, doesn't it? It's like me, 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 me. And I think there becomes a point where I can say, rather than just me, it's we. It's like, hold on a minute, who else is having these experiences too? Who else is trying to figure out their female working class identity in the creative world? And yeah, I want to turn it into a more we than a me. But
Hmm.
I've just written my essay, and that kind of goes into my life and my artwork. But I think that was necessary for me to move on to the next step, which is like, right, who else is experiencing this? Let's work together. Let's do something to actually change what is going on in working class education and life.
Yeah, and there always is a broader resonance to any work, no matter how personal. And I actually think the more personal, often the wider the remit, because
Mm.
that's what art is. You're projecting something, and while you've got your very unique lens over whatever it is you're trying to say, you will always connect with other people. There's
Mm.
always overlaps in
That's
what
true.
people do, which is why I'll always be doing my own personal work, writing and everything else, because I love that too much. I love it when it brings people into my
Mhm.
life and they can resonate, but also teach me things about it. This is
Yeah.
something that's come up recently. I've learned a lot about both the practice, but also what I'm trying to say in the lived experience, and about me personally from other people, from feedback, like getting reviews
Okay.
on books and kind of going, oh, I never thought that I was doing that, but I actually was. And it's really obvious now that someone else has told me it. So actually, that's quite interesting. It is
Yeah,
a bit of a
feedback's a
conductor.
really helpful thing as a creative. I think yeah, it's a really healthy thing to learn of how others are perceiving your work. Um, which doesn't often happen because you're a bit immersed in what you're doing.
Hmm.
It's not a regular thing that you get feedback. A lot of my work is have got really personal elements in it that are probably glanced over, some really dark things that I know what they mean, but I'm not sure. If you look hard enough, you'll maybe see it or interpret it in some way, but there is a lot of of dark elements to it.
And going back to what you said earlier as well about the kind of the drink and things like that with working class people, I think that outlet is really important. And like I lost my I lost my oldest friend last year to he was in a bit of an alcohol spiral in the end, and it was quite sad.
Mhm.
And but he would never admit to any form of creativity or artistry. But I knew he was. I loved his storytelling, and as a kid, when
Mm.
he'd draw, and I'd kind of be the only person he'd show it to. He'd come from alcoholic parents, step parents, things like that. A real tough start.
Mm.
not gone down that road for a long, long time, but it was troubles in his life, financial and other things. But I always saw the big lack in that, that ability to explore the self. I think that this is
Mm.
why I think it's really important, and it's never just about, people have this interpretation of art that it's this luxury or it's this thing that just certain people do and all a bit woo woo, and it's like, no, it's not. It's a necessity in my opinion.
Mhm.
It is a
Mhm.
tool for understanding yourself and those feelings. And if you don't and you can't, you either try to escape them or you get weighed down by them.
Mm. And like I was just saying a moment ago, with me doing work about myself, I automatically feel almost a bit guilty and selfish about it. It's like, why? Why? I shouldn't. I've just done a whole reversal now, haven't I? But yeah, I guess it's hard to put yourself forward and express that you personally as a person creatively, and fully immerse yourself in you. Who am I? What was my background? What's my life like? Where is my life moving forward? I'm not sure, but I think it's definitely helped me the last year by doing that,
Hmm.
mental health wise. Um, at first it didn't. At first I got quite depressed because of it, because I was bringing up things and and remembering things that I'd rather not remember. But then they soon diminished, and I saw the positive outlook of actually, it's weird because you wouldn't even see this in my work, but it's like this whole journey that I've been on. But yeah, definitely feel much better for it now. So it just goes to prove that it can help so much. I mean, come on, creativity is always going to help your head, though, right?
Massively,
Yeah.
massively. Humor, all the things you can lace in there. And like you say, though, subversion is important. It doesn't have to be overt. You don't have to square everything away that's going on in your work. I believe that there's resonance there. When you pour that emotion in there and you mean it, I really think it resonates on a way that the conscious mind might not grasp. But as a viewer of that work, I do think you detect something that's bigger than that.
Mm,
I'm a massive believer in that. I think,
mm,
I remember Simon Dixon from Dixon Baxi, a design agency in London, saying to me, he was really liking the little Zoom mic that I had, a little portable mic at the time. And he was sort of musing on who designed that, why they made it that way, and why it's quite aesthetically pleasing. And that where was that resonance coming from that was making it appeal to him. And that was interesting. And he was saying about their work that, for example, they'd rebranded AC Milan Football Club. And as part of that project, they went over to the San Siro and spent time over there with their fans and everything. And he was saying now, as a creator of that work, his agency, no one there should ever have the liberty to go and say, well, we did this with that curve because of this and that little bit of typography. It's like, it should, if you care about the work and you've put heart and soul into it, it will come across in some way to the end user. And I
mm.
found it really interesting. And I do believe that. So I think that sometimes it's good to keep artistic secrets as well, to
Yeah.
leave little nuances in there that is only for you and what you shouldn't. There's only so much explaining that should be done. I think that's the purpose of art.
I think if I explained it fully and dove into it and shared that, I think it would A, ruin it for me, and I think B, the person wouldn't want it. They'd be like, oh right, okay. Yeah, I want people to see what they see in my work. It's up to them whether
Yeah.
whether they see it. And I find it a bit uncomfortable, going on about darker aspects of my life and why I've chosen to hide this within the painting that you might not see. You know, yeah, I don't really want to keep explaining myself. I don't want to
No.
explain myself. My explanation is my artwork.
Yeah, and as someone who's practicing emotional creativity as an artist with a fine art background, it's almost your responsibility to keep some mystique there. It's like I wouldn't want to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
everything
yeah.
like I've got one of your Lego sculptures on my shelf in there. I love it.
I love
It
it.
speaks to me, and I don't know what it says, but it gives me a good feeling, and that's enough. You know,
Good.
and also having a small connection with yourself and knowing the hand that made it is also gives it resonance too. But it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
hey.
beautiful. And it's a nice idea, isn't it, that our work's out there and we can't control that and we can't
Yeah,
know always where it is, but to know that it might be giving someone joy or thought
yeah.
provoking or whatever is amazing, really.
I've still got your it's the little ripped piece of yellow paper with the shoe found at the skate park. That's
Oh
on my
yeah.
wall. Yeah. Look on my wall, it'd be there forever.
Yeah, I
It's
love
like
it. I
a
love
little
that.
thing that I like.
All that stuff was just mining my that was early parenthood, mining my memories of, that working class background and growing up in these
Yeah.
sort of scabby little environments and odd characters turning up. And I remember a friend that I met here on the dog walk, having read it, he said, like, absolutely love it. He said it was like looking at my own reflection in a muddy puddle, which I loved.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I've got your
Yeah.
print framed as well. Is it the one with all the little bits that you found? What was it called? Urban. What's the title of it? Your print. Urban.
British subculture artifacts, I called it. Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's framed in our room. That's another one that I love.
See, I
Like
love
you
that.
say, God, my house is full of stuff, artwork everywhere, but it all relates to me in some way, and it makes me happy.
hmm
I couldn't imagine living in like a sterile white room with
Oh, yeah.
nothing to stimulate your creativity. No, 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 no. Couldn't
Our
have it.
house is like that too. It's like curated chaos, loads of friends' prints and
Yeah,
stuff, and like your Lego thing. And then there's like Laura's somebody's china, I don't know, some china we inherited up on the shelf as well with all these gaudy colours. It's like, I love
fantastic. That's what
it.
it should be about.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, tell us what's coming up then, because I'm interested in, you mentioned exhibition.
Oh, yeah, we've got an exhibition. We haven't got a date yet, so it's sometime later in the year. We are, well, it's curated. God, this is, sorry. Beat that, just cut that one out. Cut that out. It is curated by the Framery in Sheffield, which are a framing company. So they are gathering a load of artists together to display some work at Triple Point Brewery. So I'm going to be my work's going to be shown alongside artists like Kid Acne. You heard of Kid Acne?
I have, yeah.
Melville, who's Ace, and Joe Peel as well. And for that exhibition, we're going to have a limited edition of beers with the artist's artwork on it as well.
Super.
That's going to be really fun and exciting. There's some more artists that we're gonna get involved in that. And yeah, that's this year. I haven't got much else coming up other than that. I feel like I've just completed a load of work. So we did the Tramlines Festival where I did my trashy Barbie art installation.
Which was awesome, by the way. That video was fantastic.
Oh, do you like it? It was
I
so
love
much
it. Yeah.
fun. It was so much fun. Everyone engaged in it for 3 days. That trashy box was just continuously being used, and it was free and it was fun and it was just brilliant. And that coincided with the beer that we just done at Triple Point, Libertas beer with one of the trashy ladies on it. So I kind of enjoying at the moment working with local businesses. So the Framery have been a massive help to me recently. So they kind of represent my work at the moment. So they're offering loads of cool opportunities. So I'm sure there'll be more in the future. Definitely.
Brilliant. I think it's really healthy mapping out your local area and learning who's
Mm,
around and knitting it together. I think
definitely.
because it speaks to all the themes we mentioned earlier, like belonging and, purpose and just on a social level. It's great.
And there's something like amazing about Sheffield. There's just I've been here 2.5 years now. It's just full of creativity. There's always something going on. You can walk 5 minutes down the road, you can walk to the other end of Sheffield. There's always something going on. And I find that Sheffield people are really proud of their city too. They know the history of it. They know,
hmm
what businesses have changed over the years. They can tell you a story about X, Y, and Z. And I love that. I love that about Sheffield. It's brilliant. But creativity wise, there's loads of opportunities here. So it's just kind of like talking to other people and, when you click with someone, then doing projects together, that kind of just happens naturally at exhibitions. Just went to Melville the Third's exhibition. It was just really inspirational, met some really cool people there. And I guess that's what it's all about. And, working with Triple Point Brew, it's in Sheffield, working with the Framery, it's in Sheffield. It's just this little magical thing that's happening within this quite relatively small city.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, Sheffield has got its own energy. I really love it.
Yeah, it has. It has.
Brilliant. Well, I'll have to give you a shout next time I'm there. I've got
Yeah,
a good mate who
do.
lives
Come
there.
by.
I'm massively overdue a visit to see him, actually, so I'll let you
Oh,
know
hey,
if I'm in town.
who's that? A friend?
Yeah, he goes to Danny
Yeah.
Skerritt. He goes under Dirty Freud musician, but he's the one I mentioned who sort of looks after me on the producing side. Okay, sometimes if I get myself out of my depth, but
Okay,
but
got
yeah,
you.
I think he's based out in Chapeltown. I
Okay,
think.
I've
No,
still
hang
done
on, it's
somewhere
Chapeltown
around
Leeds.
Sheffield.
I'm getting mixed up. Might be anyway. He's one of the suburbs in Sheffield, but yeah.
Got you. Got you. Yeah, if you ever here, give us a shout.
I will. Well, cheers for taking the time, Sarah, especially after the dentist. I appreciate it.
I know my mouth is just started to unnumb now. Excellent. All right, then have a good day, Ben. Take it easy.
You too, Sarah. See
All
ya.
right, see you in a bit. Bye. 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 Bye.
Massive, heartfelt thank you to Sarah for taking the time during a busy summer holiday as the wonderful mother of two young boys. I've seen over the years Sarah is a keen skateboarder, and one of the reasons we connected so deeply quite early is because I was just in love with the fact that they were a skateboarding family and they'd got something of a reputation as the skateboarding family. They're two boys who were full of beans at the exhibition and just looked cool as the whole family does. They're a very cool family. And I love it. I love keeping I love keeping tabs on Sarah, and this is something that came up in my talk with the students at D&AD. It's about not distancing yourself or distancing your creativity in a professional environment from the things you do for joy and for pleasure and for release in your life. So the skating and the music stuff that Sarah touched upon in this episode today are vitally important to the shape of her creativity, and those things might never come into her professional work, her intellectual creativity, but I can guarantee you those things are a form of emotional creativity for those guys, and it just helps to fortify their identity and who they are and how they present themselves to the world and how they engineer opportunities, how they, all of the things that make up creativity. So I would implore all of you guys to do the same. Go for those passions, make time to do it, even if it feels like you're not working, because the spell of always being productive is yet to be broken since the Industrial Revolution, and I think it damages a lot of people. So leisure and idling is a big part of my talk and my workshops about, really giving yourself to immersive experiences, doing the things that you love, that you're passionate about, because they will change your brain and your perception of the world in such a way that is also the way you filter your creativity. So it absolutely does come into the professional realm, even if not in a direct linked way. Anyway, I think that's probably enough prattling for me for one day. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Check out Sarah's work. Go and buy some of her wares. They're brilliant. You might have seen the Lego sculpture that I shared on my social media. I bought that as a Christmas gift by my wife because she knew I absolutely loved it. And it was awesome. It's awesome to be able to support fellow artists that way. And if you're in the north, go and check out the Sheffield scene. Connect with Sarah, network, grow those beautiful tribes that I'm always banging on about. That's about it from me. Big thank you to the lovely and founding and appreciated sponsor of the show, Illustration X. You can see their global range of illustration and animation portfolios at illustrationx.com. You can also check out the Ukrainian Institute and help to support their brave and talented creatives at the ui.org.ua. That's about it from me. Creative Condition book is out now, bentallenwriter.com/shop. You should also by now be able to buy the Anatomy of Creativity map through my website. If it's not up there right now, it will be coming very soon. Helpful resource, something you can always refer back to make sure you're taking care of all the components of your creativity. Rate, review, subscribe, please, if you get a chance. It really helps. Coming up, we've got Erin Riley, the new global CEO of TBWA Advertising Agency. That's a power episode as well. We've got who else have we got coming up? Professor Carlos Moreno talking about the 15-minute city concept. Oof, good one. Loads good stuff coming up. Cheers, guys. Love doing this. Love you all for listening. Have a great week. Take care. Stay creative.